coming to you live from CBT Studios in the heart of Roseville, California. I'm your host, Matt, and join with me as always are your two co-hosts,
Andrew,
Roger,
and this is the Cryptid vs. Cryptid podcast. Play that spontaneous music. We are back, only a week later from the last recording.
Yeah, it's going to be at the same time for everyone else, but for us it's pretty quick between episodes this time.
Yeah, pretty quick turnaround. Still plenty of growth on the podcast, though. We are 15 downloads shy from 1,600 downloads total.
Insane.
So, we want to give a big thank you. We do have something special coming up, and we do plan on doing something special for the viewers in that special thing that's coming up. Can't talk about it right now, but stay tuned. It's going to be very awesome. And as always, if you want to get a hold of us, you can reach us at our email address. That is cryptidversuscryptid@gmail.com.
cryptidversuscryptid@gmail.com.
So if you want to get in touch, give us any suggestions, some feedback, your thoughts, all that fun stuff, go ahead and shoot us an email. It's the best way to get a hold of us. And that should do it for our thank you and our little email notification for this episode. So how about we hop right into it? What are we talking about today?
This week we have the Wechuge. Is that how I pronounce it?
I'm going to be honest.
Wechuge, I think.
I have no idea.
Either way, we got the Wechuge and the Makara are facing off against each other.
Wechuge. Maybe.
I think it's the Wechuge.
Yeah, it's Wechuge. Or Wechuge.
I like Wechuge.
I don't know about the Wechuge.
Wechuge?
Wechuge.
Alright, well, since you're trying to pronounce it the hardest, how about you hit us with the Wechuge history?
Glad you agree with the back. Alright. In the frozen forests of the Great White North, there is a creature spoken of only in whispers, known for the curse of being too strong. It is covered in a strong veil of ice. Not only does it have a strong suit of armor, but is also very large and muscular. This cryptid shares a lot of similarities to the Wendigo, enjoying hunting humans and devouring their flesh. One of the biggest differences of the Wendigo is that it seems to have a greater control over its ability to control ice. It's able to launch blasts of ice in the shape of spears, and is even said to be able to make them erupt in smaller explosions. Stories of this cryptid come from the Daneza, a tribe of Peace River in Canada, and also from a hidden secret group of cryptid hunters. The name given to this cryptid is the Wechuge. Could this be the most dangerous cryptid known to man, or is this just another tale created to scare people away from certain taboos?
Yeah, not much to go off with this guy. He's very similar to the Wendigo, like me and Roger were talking about before we started the episode, with subtle differences. But one of the big factors in the way I found out about this cryptid, Devin had recommended me to another podcast where they kind of just read stories of cryptids, monsters, ghosts, aliens, all that kind of stuff. And there's a guy on there that writes into the show who claims to be a cryptid hunter. And we can dive into that on a different episode, maybe over on the Patreon or something. But he basically tells a tale of how he was sent on assignment to go and kill a Wechuge who was terrorizing this local area. He and a small group of people go up. Most of the people on the expedition die, including his fiancée. He's almost killed. And then, I want to say a few years later, he is contacted about it and goes up and is able to kill the Wechuge. But that was the big story I heard about it. But besides that, I mean, there's not too much other stuff to go off of. He's another elusive one of the Native American tales.
Yeah, it seems to stem from the same type of thing where it's, stories of not being too overtly powerful, greedy, hungry, lustful type thing.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not much to go off. And like we were saying, Roger, picture wise, I mean, when you search it up, you just get a lot of the same pictures you get for when you search things like the Wendigo or the Skinwalker. I did find one or two. If you search up Wechuge, the third picture is one of the more popular ones that I would think would be closer to the look of the Wechuge. Although in this it's completely covered in ice, as to where I'm pretty sure the ice doesn't just completely envelop it like that. There's also another story that it takes the form of a wolf and with like wolfish ice armor surrounding it.
It takes the form of and power of one of the ancient giant spirit animals. That's what it's usually possessed by too. So it's usually a human that is possessed by the power of the ancient giant spirit animals related to becoming too strong. And that's one of the taboos that they break. It's usually that or the other ones, which is like having a photo taken with flash, listen to music with a stretched string or hide, such as a guitar, or eating meat with fly eggs.
Yeah, this is one where, usually you have the boogeyman stories that stay away from the creepy stuff. But this one, the kind of boogeyman things are a little out there, a little odd. But we can talk more about that later on when we cover believability. Another thing I found interesting was what's the movie that's based on a Stephen King novel?
Pet Cemetery.
Pet Cemetery.
Pet Sematary. I read online that this guy's brought up in Pet Cemetery.
He is? I thought
Yeah.
it was Wendigo.
That's what I've started thinking. I think they might be getting it confused with the Wendigo, but I wasn't sure. Because when you do search up Wechuge, you get brought to the Stephen King fandom wiki. Let me see if I can find it. This is just describing
No,
it.
I'm on the actual wiki itself. It brings it up and it says it's mentioned. It doesn't say like what they say about it. Overall, it could just be something that like someone's talking about when they're talking about the Wendigo.
Also, I found the pronunciation. It's
Which-
Wechuge.
Wechuge.
Yeah. It's pretty close to how we've been saying it.
Alright, well, I think that encompasses pretty much any kind of backstory or storytelling that exists of the Wechuge. The Wechuge. So, as we do, let's hop into stats, abilities, and characteristics. The only real characteristics I got was that it was 8 feet tall.
Pretty unanimous across most of the descriptions and drawings. It seems at least to be tall. It has like long arms, and I'm pretty sure it is similar to the Wendigo. It's got some sort of dead animal head on it, some sort of skull on its head.
Yeah, now that you mention that, I do think in the Cryptid Hunter story, they do mention that it's got like some kind of dead animal head with horns. Do we just want to put down like deer skull for a head?
Yeah.
Whereas the Wendigo, it's like, oh yeah, it could have something like that, or it could also be the curse. It seems to me that this is more like, oh yeah, no, it has.
Wendigo is more of it just has like any animal pelt because it's more of a hunter and it craves more of just like flesh and stuff. But this one's more is a killer, but it doesn't kill for lust, I guess. It just kills for the sake of killing.
Alright, then let's hop into abilities. The two main ones I have is Ice Armor and Ice Projectiles. Just because that's like the big thing it was known, and as I go back to that Cryptid Hunter, their reports do state that it is able to throw like spears and other kind of projectiles, and that's one of its biggest forms of killing just because it's a long-ranged attack. And the Cryptid Hunter, the dude reporting, did himself get pierced by one of the icicle spears. Anything else we want to add to that?
I believe he has a power to lure people in to, like, kind of hypnotize them, I guess. Let me see if I can find where it said that. Yeah. The Wechuge seeks to eat people, attempting to lure them away from their fellows by cunning. And so I'm guessing it's more of trying to either scaring them away from whoever they are, or like whoever they're with, or kind of hypnotizing them into, I don't know, kind of that greed feel. Like, oh, there's something you want over here.
So then do we want to put like a semi-hypnotism to it? Alright, I don't hear any retort from Andrew, so...
Nope. I'm just looking up a little bit more on the Wechuge now as well, trying to find out if there would be anything else I'd put down, but I don't think so.
Other than that, that's all I found was ice armor and fucking projectiles. Stats are going to be a big one, though. Especially intelligence.
Yeah, no, abilities-wise, I mean, just overall, it's really known for that ice armor. Because when you think about, like, a lot of the cryptids, or especially the Native American ones, they're a lot of just flesh and bones, as to where this thing does have, like, that armor to it. That's very noticeable and distinct. So are we ready to hop into stats, then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, so, hopping into stats, what are we thinking for intelligence?
I'm going to be honest, I'm thinking a 10.
A 10.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Not only
Really?
in this article do I see crafty, intelligent, powerful, and they're also luring people in. They have that intelligence to lure people into what they want type of feel. So I just think their intelligence 10 being is kind of like a standard for it.
It's like, even if you just look up Wechuge and then you go scroll down a little bit, pretty much all the small like blurbs that are under the websites are all like intelligent, crafty, powerful, intelligent, powerful, intelligent, powerful.
Yeah.
Alright, I can roll with that then. When I first thought about it, I thought how we've talked about, like, when they do the transformation, they, like, sort of lose that mentality, or that mental state.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're right. When I'm looking at it, they're all just saying it's cunning,
Yeah.
intelligent.
Yeah, see, this one, it doesn't seem like a curse as people say it is. It seems more like it's a power boost. And so you get this divine power from the divine god spirit animals. And so they give you the knowledge of everything.
It seems more like becoming a Sith. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you just get in a crazy power boost, but like your morality maybe goes out the window.
You are super intelligent, but you don't care about any life.
Alright, then yeah, I'll throw on the 10. And just to add a little to the 10, I do remember in that podcast episode, when the guy does go back to kill it, or fight it the second time, he's tracking it for like a couple days, and the creature is smart enough to know that this guy is ahead of the rest of the group. So he sees that the tracks like turn around and circle back. So yeah, I could totally see. He's almost got that strategic mindset to him that a lot of the cryptids lack. But with intelligence out of the way, let's hop into power. Another big one for this guy. You leading into anything specific, Andrew?
I was gonna say 10 off the bat, but I kind of want to give him a 9.
I was thinking 9. 10's kind of too big of a jump for him. I think a 9 is probably going to be the best.
I think that physically he's not super powerful. I think most of his power is probably coming from his ice wielding abilities, and how well he can wield them. But he
Well,
does,
no.
in most interpretations, it looks like he's not like the physically strongest. I mean, he does have like an aura of, like Roger's saying, divine power type thing, but
Well, it's also that one of the reasons someone becomes Wechuge is either breaking the taboo or becoming quote unquote too strong.
I'm almost in the boat for giving him a 10. Because if you take in the projectiles in the power, that's just high upon itself. And with them becoming too strong, that already asserts that it's higher than average power. But my thing I was wondering is if, when it refers to being too strong, does it mean physically or does it mean in the magical sense? Like if you're one of the medicine men and you just become too strong in the magic.
I think it's just an all around too strong. Like you become strong in intelligence and strength and mobility, everything.
It's almost like you skewed your character build too far in one direction. So,
Alright, but you guys still think it'd only be a 9 in power?
Yeah.
yeah.
Alright, I can jump on the 9 boat. Now, here's one. I'm going to throw it out here. A 10 for defense.
I was thinking of 10 as well. Okay.
Just because from everything I've heard with the ice armor, it's near impenetrable.
The ice is made and very strong and is only killed by being thrown on a campfire and kept there overnight until it has melted.
I kind of want to give it a 9, just because it seems like the weakness to fire is kind of a detriment.
Yeah, but it has to sit over there like overnight. So that's like 8 hours, 10 hours.
Yeah.
And so
I'm just
with
saying,
that durability, it's kind of like a big thing.
I'm just saying, if we took a cryptid that could, I'm not saying this was one that exists or anything like that, but let's say we had a cryptid that could control metal or something like that, and it could control steel. Do you think that would be stronger defensively than
So,
someone
like
who could
Magneto?
control ice? Yeah. Do you think we could rank him higher? And if so, then why does this guy get a 10?
The way I come from with the 10 is this ice armor, it's not like just putting on extra gear. This ice armor is a part of him, so it's a part of his natural ability.
I know. But, I mean, that also could be a detriment to him, because let's say you do break the armor, then you're hurting him instead of just hurting a defense.
Yeah, but on the rare occasion you can, it's said that this armor cannot fucking break, and for a good reason, because it's solid. It has a great defense on it, and if the armor is part of him, the defense for him it's got to be off the charts.
No, I'm not saying he's not tanky. I'm just saying I think if we dropped a nuke on him, I don't think he's coming out of it. And I think that that's what I'd want to reserve a 10 defense for.
So you're reserving a 10 defense for armor that can be impenetrable to a nuclear bomb?
To physical force up to that scale, yes.
Haven't we given some a
I
10
think
Unless
that's
we-
a little
unless we-
high, accounting for we've given things a power of 10 for less than the equivalent to that.
But that's what I was about to bring up, is unless we want to be able to boost the scale in any factor, be like, oh yeah, I'll give him like 11 defense or something like that. And then, because power was something that we were giving 10s, and then we came up with the fact, well, we have scale boosts, so if the smaller scale doesn't work, we can shrink it down and then make the scale bigger.
Well, and the scale is more of like a size kind of scale for cryptids that were bigger than your average cryptid, bigger than like 10 feet tall.
That's true, but wasn't there a cryptid that was smaller that we still boosted the scale? Because we're like, oh, this guy's way too powerful.
Not that I can recall off the
No.
top of my head. Maybe Omnicook would be the only one I could think of.
I think Omnicook, we upped the scale of power just because of his ability to literally tear through anything.
So there's a precedent here, but like I'm saying, I'm just thinking, if we do have a scale, what's the upper echelon? What's the upper limit? And if so, I'm happy to give this guy a 10 for sure, if there's a rank above it.
I'll give it a 9 if we go on the premise that a 10 defense would be a great defense to all factors with no weakness. As to where this guy is weak to fire, which is the great counter to his defense overall, a 10 would be great defense against anything without having any kind of weakness to a certain element or physical object.
Yeah, which is where my initial argument came from.
I can go with a 9 then, since its only weakness would be to fire.
Yeah, I guess I can go with a 9.
And then, since it came to mind, once again, the podcast. To hurt this thing, the cryptid hunters did have to use incinerary rounds to get through the armor. So I would imagine that a strong enough force could break through the armor, but it would have to be extremely high without the assistance of fire. Alright, then let's talk about mobility. Anybody got something going off from the start? Or should we discuss it a little further to get a good base point?
I wanted to start off with like a 7 or something like that. I don't know what you guys thought.
I can't find anything of him having speed. I would either think a 6 or a 7.
Yeah, that's why I went with the 7, because it seems like it obviously is a higher speed than just a normal human being, given how it's bigger than a normal human being. But doesn't seem like it's groundbreaking the Flash out here or anything. So
Yeah, I'm also gonna go with the 7 because in the Cryptid Hunter story, the dude is able to track it and keep up with it at a good pace, and he's catching up to it slowly. So this thing isn't like outpacing him or outrunning him. And the thing is aware of its presence, so it's not making good strides to escape from his attack or his hunt. So I think a 7 is a good fair point for mobility. And like you said, there's just no good feat to really show off anything higher than above a base mobility level. Okay, then hopping over to HP. I'm thinking maybe like another 6 or a 7 here.
Yeah, I was thinking 6.
Andrew, any thoughts?
I was thinking about whether or not the environment it lives in is harsh enough to consider maybe we boost the HP, but I think 6 is probably better just because it seems like this thing more so has the ability to control the ice so it won't feel it than, oh, it just, can sustain itself through it.
Yeah, and I think the environmental wise, I think it's just one of those cryptids that's naturally adapted to the cold. So it's not like it has to survive and it has great HP to survive in the cold. I think it's just semi resistant to the cold weather.
I almost think we could give it a 6.
That's what I was going for, was a 6.
Oh, I thought you said 7.
I said 7 just because the body is bigger than an average body, but I could be swayed to a 6. So we'll go with that one. And then finally, stealth. Are we thinking anything high or low for stealth?
Now, I don't think stealth would be low too much, but its stealth isn't like on the level of the El Chupacabra. Because if we're going off that story, the guy tracked it down. So he obviously could find where it was. So, and with the good stealth, you never leave any sign of you being there.
Yeah, you can hide your presence very easily with the high stealth.
Yeah, no, I don't think his stealth is anything to write home about. Like you said, he does get tracked, and he even gets tracked turning around. And while he does have that high strategic mind, his overall physical kind of stealth just isn't impressive. Are you thinking like a 5 or lower?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
I was thinking a 5 for sure.
All right, cool.
Because
Up on the 5 train.
it's still impressive to a degree, but it's still kind of like basic human stealth.
Yeah, I think for something its size, it's not a bad stealth, but it doesn't show any real signs of high stealth like with the Chupacabra or even something on par with like Bigfoot.
I think Wendigo had a pretty high stealth too, right?
Yeah, Wendigo had a pretty high stealth.
I can double check that real quick.
I think he had a high stealth mostly because of his ability to just change the weather entirely.
Yeah, and his snow walking ability.
I didn't realize we gave the Wendigo a 10 in stealth.
Yeah, he was our
Yeah,
first
it made sense.
10 stealth, yeah.
Alright then, this poor bastard gets hit with a 5 stealth.
Yeah, poor bastard, and then he has intelligence, power, and defense 10 and 9.
I mean, he was going really strong and then he kind of slid off the second half.
It's just because of how powerful he is, but there's no signs of him being able to tank stuff or being able to run and hide.
Yeah, I think he probably uses his intelligence to cover his weaknesses, so...
Alright, and then running back with a quick stat recap, we have intelligence 10, power 9, defense 9, mobility 7, HP 6, stealth 5. If his defense wasn't so impressive, we could have given him a 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Unfortunately, we can't. And then, let us move on to our second cryptid, the competitor to the Wechuge, the Makara. Who wants to take us away with Makara history?
I got it. Deriving from Hindu myth, the Makara is part land-based and part aquatic cryptid that is known to be associated with gods by being a creature that they ride and sometimes even a god itself. Not too much is known about this cryptid outside of the myth. The Makara is depicted in carvings and statues through many Hindu and Buddhist temples. One of the most popular depictions of the cryptid is in a temple near Agnikor Wat, showing the creature being more dinosaur-like, sharing a lot of similarities to a Stegosaurus, with a more snake-like head. Could there be a dinosaur that survived a lot longer than we thought, or were people getting a little too creative coming up with new creatures?
So, just to preface this cryptid is obviously very prevalent in Hindu myth and Hindu legends, but it does fall under the cryptid category because there are reported sightings, one we'll get into here in a second. But because it does fall, or does have some sightings, it does technically fall into the cryptid sphere. And I just had to preface this because we tend to be a little loose with some of our cryptids, but this one definitely does count. And then circling back, yeah, there really isn't much to go off. A little fun fact, the most common carving you see when it comes to the Makara is that dinosaur carving in the temple, and that carving has gained a lot of popularity because they filmed, I think it was the first live action Tomb Raider in that temple, and that has caused it to gain a lot of attraction to that carving specifically.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
And then, do we have any other stories or fun facts to go off of for the Makara?
Not really. The only story sighting that it really has is from Vietnam in 2013. But a lot of people denied that just because it was pretty far off inland. And usually with sea creatures, you kind of find their remains by the shore.
So was it just a floating carcass in the water or something? Because I didn't really read into it.
No, I think what it was is that it was more on land. I mean, try and find where I read it.
What Roger's saying is they found it a ways from the beach, inland. So that kind of throws it into the skepticism territory.
On November 15th, 2013, an alleged monster creature has surfaced in Vietnam with many scratchings their heads due to the claim of how it was found. According to Japanese news site Cryptid, the monster was dug up in Vietnam rather than found at a beach or near water. It is clearly a faked photo, though.
And we can get into the believability, but
yeah, I'm trying to find
the whole thing. The whole thing was that typically the more sea monsters like sharks or whales or anything like that, you would find it by an ocean shore. But this is inland, so you kind of wonder why you would find it that far in if it's more sea based.
Yeah, so I was looking for the story and I found where you had found it, and I was kind of having a chuckle because I'll send the picture over on Discord, but the photo they have, it's if something like this was found, you definitely know about it, and it just makes it totally unbelievable.
Oh yeah, no, that's unbelievable.
yeah.
Because if you find something like that, it's a total game changer for just everything. Hindu myth, cryptids in general. But yeah, there's really not much else to go on. I tried diving into reading some Hindu myths on it, but I couldn't really find anything that wasn't the first or just the general knowledge of it that you can find pretty much on any of the websites that cover this cryptid. And there's a video talking about the mythology of it. It's a 15-minute video, but it pretty much just slowly talks about everything that you can already find on any of the websites that have a quick little paragraph or two right up on the cryptid. But since there's not much more to tell about it, let's hop into stats, abilities, and characteristics. I got a couple characteristics here having to do with a lot of the depictions. It's depicted to have a not very long, but a longish trunk, scales, and tusks. And a lot of these are derived from the animal that it's based off or morphed with. The trunk and tusk coming from an elephant, and the scales coming from a crocodile.
Yeah, it's definitely it's very weird. Like some iterations show it with four legs, some only show it with the two in the front and then just the tail at the back. It's definitely got quite a few iterations. Those are the three consistencies I can find.
Yeah. So going over to the images, are we going to go with the two legs or the four legs? And if we go with the two legs, are we going with something that more looks like the, what is this, one, two, three, four, five, the sixth picture? Or are we going to go with something closer to the second picture?
I
On
would
Google?
say the second picture.
I kind of want to go with picture number 7. I'm in the boat for four legs, but it's up to you guys.
Yeah, actually, probably four legs would be better. I could see that being more of what it is.
Alright, then we're going to go with picture number 7.
Yeah.
Alright, for all you that are following at home, go onto Google and look at the 7th picture there. That's who we'll be basing our stats off of. Also, for abilities, I couldn't really find anything besides it being able to traverse land and water, which I didn't really put down.
Yeah, I think it can also like shoot water out of its trunk, but that's just kind of a thing that like animals can do in general, so I don't know if that's really anything crazy.
Yeah, not unless it's shooting like steaming hot water or icicle spikes out of the trunk. I don't think it's anything that we really should feel like we have to include here. Alright then, let's hop into some stats. Let's talk intelligence. What are we thinking?
I will say this thing was depicted as a god or carrying gods, so I'm thinking its intelligence is probably at least pretty high. I don't know, like an 8 or something.
Yeah, I'd see either 8 or maybe even 9.
Oh, I was gonna go even lower. I was probably just gonna go with like a 7.
Really? Why do you think 7?
Well, there's, besides it being like, for lack of a better term, more of like a vassal or a vehicle for the gods, it doesn't really have any signs of higher intelligence besides that. And then when it comes to being a ride for the gods, you could just say they're taking some control over the creature and making it more docile to ride.
Well, it says that it's either a ride for the gods or it is a god itself.
And some of my thinking also comes from in like Hindu and Buddhist beliefs. A lot of that has to do with reincarnation, a lot of the gods being, reincarnated forms of each other and whatnot. So, and enlightenment and all that, higher forms of intelligence. So, I don't know.
Alright, I could probably bump up to an 8 if that's what you guys are going to go for. Alright, then we'll stick with an intelligence of 8. What are we thinking for power? I'm thinking it's probably going to be fairly high.
Yeah, I was thinking baseline 9, just because it's a mix of two pretty powerful animals already.
Yeah, I could get with a 9 as well.
Yeah, I can ride with a 9. When you take
I
the
almost want to
tusks,
put it in the next power class, but I mean, it's not.
Oh,
I don't think it
yeah.
would peak.
Have we gotten how big it is? That was what I was trying to find, but I don't know.
I don't have any specific description. It just seems like it's larger, fairly larger than a human being.
Okay, well, if you go on like the Cryptid wiki, it is. I think the first picture has like Makara top of it. If anything, and it's next to some. I'm guessing that's redwoods or something, just like pine
Section
trees.
deer. It's like an artist rendition.
But if it's that big, it's definitely in the next fucking class. Now, if we're going off the picture from the website, most likely it's like on the threshold of being in the next class.
yeah, no, that's a hard one. Because like you said, that first one definitely shows it to be a much larger creature. When it comes to like, you look at the carving, it looks like a stegosaurus, and I don't think we'd put something like a stegosaurus size into the next upper echelon.
You don't think we put a stegosaurus in the next size? I would. Next size is like house size.
Yeah.
Maybe. I'm not very topped off on stegosaurus size. It's been a while since I played Ark.
Well, just dinosaurs in
Well,
general would all mostly be in that size, but stegosauruses are huge. So,
the only one that's not that big is like a fucking raptor, usually. But a
well,
lot of
yeah,
other
there's a bunch of
dinosaurs,
tiny dinos, but like as far as just base dino class, like Triceratops, Stegosaurus, Parasaur, they are all within that next size range for sure.
Then do we want to knock this guy up to our next size, which I forget what we classified it as?
house size. But probably, yeah. Because there was house size, and then there's like kaiju size. And that's what Ningen was
Hmm.
in.
Pretty sure we had house size, and then it was like, oh, what was it? House size, building sized, kaiju, and then like city level or something like that.
Well,
I
kaiju
thought
is
we only
more
had
of.
three.
Yeah, kaiju was basically building size.
Yeah, like office building size. Yeah.
So if we're going with the next size up, house size, that would make 5 the base 10 on our normal scale.
That's why I
So
was
what do you
saying
think he'd be on the next size?
I don't know if we reach up to. Do we go up that size for sure? Because we could. I'm solidly in the boat at this point. I think of 10 for sure if we go normal size. But do you guys think that we can get him up to a 6 or 7 on the next scale?
The
No,
highest on the next scale I would be willing to go would just be a 6. I wouldn't go any higher than that
I'm the
personally.
same. I'm the same. So
But I'm also fine just keeping him at a 10 on the normal scale.
at that point I would just keep him at a 10. Because in that case, I'm in the same class as what the Wechuge is in. So it's a little easier to gauge their power. We just know that he's probably a little above 10.
Alright, we'll put him down for a 10 in power, and we'll just keep in mind that height and size wise, he is the next scale. Just strength wise, he isn't quite there yet. And then for defense, he does have the scales. I just don't think he's gonna. It doesn't provide that kind of armor that the Wechuge's ice armor provides.
I'm thinking like 7, maybe 6.
Matt, what do you think?
You said a 5 or a 6, Roger?
7 or 6.
7 or 6. I was kind of in the 7 boat. I think the scales, because actually I'm curious. I want to look at what we gave Gator Man, just because he actually is that crocodile.
Well,
And he would
Gatorman's
have
defense.
the same kind of scales.
Gatorman's defense was kind of screwed because we had the
The belly. I still want to double check. We still gave Gator Man an 8 defense.
See, I was in the 8 boat kind of. I wouldn't go higher than that, but I definitely am more in the boat of something like an 8. Just because I think the scales and then even the tusks are another form of defense. And even like the trunk could be used as a form of defense.
I will say, looking at the picture that we're going off of, the scales are kind of thinned throughout the body, and I don't know, they don't necessarily look like tough crocodile kind of scales. So I think I would almost be closer to just a 7.
I'm fine with going with a 7 for sure. If you both are more in that category.
Yeah, I think it's a safe bet that we stick with the 7. If the scales were more prominent and more like kind of thicker looking, I could go an 8, but they just look like they're kind of thinned out. So we'll hit him with a defensive 7. Okay, now mobility. I think he's going to have pretty high mobility.
Yeah,
Factoring in that. Go ahead.
especially the four-legged version, I think, because that is the iteration we're taking. I think that it's going to have a high land speed and a high aquatic speed. So overall, that just gives it a pretty huge buff to mobility.
Yeah, that's where I was going with it. I know when we did the water-based season, we separated like land speed and water speed. But if we more generalize it, if you take in its land and water-based, that bumps its mobility up. The forelegs give it a boost for speed on the land. Its toes are webbed and it does have a tail, so it's going to be very quick in the water as well. But numerical wise, where do you guys stand?
I think I'm in the 9
6.
vote.
Oh.
6?
6.
Where's the 6 coming from?
I just don't. I don't see him as too fast. I guess I can go with a 9. It makes sense for how big he is.
Wait, you just boosted up from a 6 to 9. I just want to know why you went so low initially.
Well, he's a fucking giant stegosaur. Essentially. Like, he's a
He's got
stegosaur size.
stegosaur parts, but overall, I mean,
Well, he's also basically the size of a stegosaur, pretty much, too.
yeah, but that doesn't necessarily have to be a detriment. He's also got 4 stegosaur-sized legs that are probably able to move pretty quick if he's got gods riding him.
Yeah, I guess I could go with a 9 as well. It makes more sense. I just wasn't thinking about that god thing.
Yeah, I would also say if it is chosen as a vehicle by the gods, it would have to have fairly impressive speed for them to pick it over other aquatic creatures. So we're cool with the 9 then?
Yeah.
What are we thinking for HP? Which is going to be a semi-difficult one to gauge. Any numbers?
Give us one.
Okay, I mean, there's nothing inherently, it doesn't have any kind of life absorbent ability. Its body is not all that bulky. I'd probably go with maybe like a 6. Although I know we've talked about, I would almost go 7 because of its size, but I know we've talked about that doesn't really factor into HP as much as it does into power and mobility.
I would still go with 7, because I feel like its size does kind of put a point into HP.
I also kind of feel the 7 here. Not so much the size, I just think overall, I think it's probably got a pretty solid HP. Yeah, I don't know, 7 just seems to fit.
Alright, dope. Let's go with the 7 then. And lastly, stealth. Inherently, I don't see any kind of sign to wager towards impressive or unimpressive stealth. The one factor in the stealth that I think it would have is its ability to vanish into water if it's on the land and use that as a way to disappear. But that's the only kind of way I could sway to giving it a higher echelon of stealth. Besides that, I'd be more leaning to a lower number.
I mean, my thing is that it hasn't really been seen too much, and that's kind of got to play a point into stealth. Is that we only have that sighting, but other than that, it's such a fucking big creature that and we still haven't seen it yet.
I'm really on the fence about this because I don't know if I want to give it a high stealth because of the no sightings, or if I want to base it off of, well, if it's at least documented in some form, then it's got to have some semblance of showing up. I mean, we have written down that this is a vassal for gods, so at some point someone's seen one or has at least spoken of seeing one. So I don't know if we use those stories to play into its stealth or to detract from it.
I'm going to go with the 6. I'd go to a 5 just because it has been seen, but it's very elusive. And I would only bump it up to a 6 because it has the ability to traverse into the water to escape or disappear.
I like that argument.
Yeah, I can go with the 6.
And I take it you're on the 6 boat as well, Andrew?
Yes, definitely.
Alright, we'll hit him with the 6. And now, quick stat roundup. The Makara is sitting at an intelligence of 8, power of 10, defense of 7, mobility of 9, HP of 7, and stealth of 6. And the Wechuge, the Wechuge is sitting at an intelligence of 10, power of 9, defense of 9, mobility of 7, HP of 6, stealth of 5. Now, let's talk about Battle Arena. I'm thinking a coast, maybe off of the Pacific Ocean, and it leads into like a forested area. And it would probably be around Canada so that there is that cold, frigid air.
I'm definitely thinking almost I don't know. I almost want to go Pacific Islands type, or maybe the Northern Pacific, something like that.
I could almost go with that, but we do have to reciprocate for the Wechuge, who's more of like a forest inland kind of environment.
Yeah, it's difficult because I'm thinking of this as more like, in the Asias for the Makara, but the Wechuge is part of it, so just a natural. It would be hard for them to naturally meet, which is, luckily we can just spawn them wherever we want. I like the beach
In
idea
our
for
battle
sure.
arena.
Yeah, I like the beach idea for sure. I don't think there'd be too much water though. I think it would just be like the coastline. That's it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely shallow water leading far off into the ocean.
I think that the other half should probably be forested, lightly forested.
Yeah, I could I could go with like a light forest that leads off into the beach slash coastal environment.
Yeah, I see that.
All right, then if we're all in agreement on the stage, yes,
Yes.
Yep.
then let's hop into today's sponsor.
Patreon.
And because I forgot that we started doing this at the beginning, we have a new patron.
Yo.
So thank you, Jordan, for supporting the show. Very much appreciate it. Andrew, what can we find over on Patreon?
Well, you can get access to our after hours content, which is the hour long of just talking about whatever usually happens after these episodes. So you can also find the D&D over there. It's got an episode out, hopefully more soon. We've got the access to the Discord, which is working perfectly, and we've got holiday episodes, which are going to start coming in pretty rapid fire here because we're hitting the holidays for the first time on this podcast. And then we've got the last one that I always forget.
You know, you always say you're forgetting the last one, but I'm pretty sure that's about all we're at right now. For
There's extra like
Patreon
clips and
things.
stuff like that, but we don't have those on there yet. We're waiting to get more.
Yeah, because of our new recording setup, it's harder to get the bloopers and stuff, but they are there. They are coming. Like Andrew said, the special holiday stuff, I already got some special holiday cryptids and monsters in mind, so stick around throughout the month of October to be seeing those cool new ones pop up. We will have some going head to head. Breakdown wise, it'll probably be one episode per cryptid, and then the end of the month we'll probably wrap it up with just discussing a few different fights altogether. And I do plan on starting a new series over there with these guys. If you want to hear our opinion on ghosts and paranormal stuff, go check it out. We're going to be attempting, most likely definitely, debunking a lot of the popular ghost videos that we can find on YouTube. So if you enjoy that, come check it out. It's only $3 a month, and you get access to all of that content.
$3 every month, and the content's ever expanding. So
you can find the link to Patreon down below. And with the ad reel out of the way, let's hop into today's main event. The battle arena is set. The Wechuge and the Makara are facing off. How do we think that they're going to come across each other?
I definitely think the Makara is in the water. Then beaches comes up on land, and the Wechuge is probably, this thing's kind of power hungry. So I'm guessing it's just already looking for something to fight.
It's looking for a next competitor to
It's looking for the next
list.
kill.
Yeah, I could see the Makara coming out of the water to go on the land, maybe to get a quick snack or to feed on something, and that's when the Wechuge rolls up on it. Now, do you think the Makara, seeing the Wechuge, would turn away from it to try and escape, or do you think it would be a head-on-head fight?
Well, accounting for it trying to turn away, not being very fun, I think this is a head-on-head. I think these guys are going at it immediately.
I can see that.
Now, I think it's going to get interesting with the Wechuge, because it's really one of the first cryptids we had that utilizes more of a distance kind of fighting tactic with its projectiles.
The real question is, are we bringing the fight close initially, or is he starting off at a distance to the point where, he immediately starts blasting him?
So in a few of the accounts, mainly the Cryptid Hunter letter, it definitely starts off at ranged and only goes like closer in when it can't hit the target from a far distance and the target's already weakened, so it's just going in for more of an easy kill. So I definitely think they'd see each other, the Makara would start heading towards it, and the Wechuge, having the intelligence of 10, would kind of go for maybe like some type of cover and start throwing the projectiles at the Makara to start weakening it.
I definitely can see that as well. I can see it launching projectiles initially. The Makara maybe gets hit by one, two, three of them, realizes what's happening. Then, with its higher mobility, it starts to, evade the attacks. So maybe over the course of the battle, it goes closer and closer ranged until at a certain point, the Wechuge knows that, okay, I can't just keep launching things off now. It's too close. So then he armors up basically and gets ready for the brawl.
Okay, my thing is, so one, I don't think it'd have to armor up. I'm pretty sure it just already has the ice armor.
Yeah, I think
I'm
the
just
ice
I just
armor
mean
it's
it gets
part of
into
the
a
thing.
stance. But yeah.
His karate pose.
Well, I just mean, goes on the defensive more so.
Kind of like a bracing for impact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think that's pretty much how it would line up. With the Makara being as fast as it is, it could definitely close the distance. Do you think the Weishuge would just stay put while it keeps throwing its projectiles, or do you think it would try and create a little bit of distance while simultaneously launching the projectiles at the Makara?
I see the Wechuge because it still has a pretty high mobility, not as high as Makara. I see it going more like running around trying to distract the Makara before its next fucking attack.
Yeah, and I think it being as tactically minded towards the hunt as it is, I think it definitely try to utilize keeping as much distance for as long as possible. But the Makara would definitely inevitably catch up, seeing as the Wechuge, besides just running around, doesn't have any other way to create distance, like climbing or hopping into the water to like the Makara can. What do you think the first attack the Makara would do? Like a chomp or kind of like a tackle with the tusks?
I'm seeing more of like a tail swipe, like, wind up and just smack it as hard as it can with its tail to see. Because that's probably the most powerful blow it's got.
That's exactly what I was thinking too. It has a pretty big fucking tail, so I see that going for that first instead.
Do you think it would just like knock it, like, let's say it like sweeps the legs? Or do you think it'd be more of like a hit to like push it, like
I
further
think it.
away or up against something?
I think it's trying to go full force, try and see how much this thing can take. It's like, almost like a batting at a pest or something. Just because it's been hitting it with these icicles, it's like, all right, get the fuck out of here, and just slaps it as hard as it can. And I could see the Wechuge probably not so much being damaged by it physically, but being like pushed back by the power of it. Hits a few trees on the way back.
I definitely think the Wechuge would be thrown off balance by that first hit. And if it does like hit a couple trees, it could definitely be dazed by it. I don't know if it would take much damage from that kind of tail attack, but it would definitely lead the Makara into being able to get off some combos on it. Maybe like the tail smack, and then it starts slashing at it or headbutting it or smacking it around with the tusks a little bit. Do you think because I know we talked about the trunk. How long do you guys think the trunk is comparatively to the body?
If we go off of an elephant's trunk, because it does say it's part elephant, I think it's, probably similar. So not, what do you say, like half the length of the body or something like that? Like,
Here was my one thing I would just thought of. Do you think it could wrap the tusk, or not the tusk, but the trunk around some part of it and then maybe try and jab it? Like kind of grapples it with the trunk and then tries to stab it with the tusks.
mm-hmm. That definitely seems probable. Maybe it goes in for a tail slap just to get this thing off balance. and then it picks it up while it's, on the ground or while it's recovering. It picks it up with its trunk and then tries to, stab it. But, the force of attrition and the Wechuge is just like taking the hits because it knows it can handle it or something like that.
Do you think the tusks would be able to penetrate the ice armor?
A big factor here is probably whether or not you think this thing, as a deity, mythologically, like has that type of power. Something like these tusks are on like a different tier, so they could break through. I think eventually, no matter what, they could, but in as quick as a fight as this is, I mean that pretty literally. I don't know if the Tusk's like 1, 2, 3 jabs. I think he'd have to continually keep hitting this thing, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely think to penetrate the armor, seeing as the Makara doesn't have any access to fire, he would have to just wear down the armor as quickly as possible to be able to really show some damage to the Wechuge.
Yeah, this thing's got to start wailing on him, and hard.
I think this thing has enough power to be able to break through that defense, though. Not quickly, but I think he'd eventually be able to break that fucking armor in a pretty vulnerable spot as well.
Yeah, so I was trying to lean into the Makara and his advantages into this fight fairly early on, just because of the fact that I think the Wechuge is going to have an easier time winning, switching into the Wechuge and his advantages into the fight. Those first initial ice projectiles, the ice projectiles are very powerful. In the letter from the Cryptid Hunter, I mean, he describes the other hunters just getting pierced and just destroyed by these ice projectiles / spears. So they're going to be very powerful. And even with the Makara's defense, I could definitely see it getting pierced and damaged pretty good by them. So I think by the time the Makara does get to the Wechuge and is dealing all this damage, it has received all this damage, its stamina is going to be depleted by a good margin by that point. And so my question would be, stamina-wise, how long can the Makara keep up its assault on the armor of the Wechuge before it just tires itself out?
Here's another thing, too. Because I know that is kind of detrimental. The Makara doesn't seem like it has the staying power. But we do have water in this arena, and that is a good escape for the Makara as well. Because, it doesn't seem like the Wechuge has any specialties in water. Whereas the Makara obviously, can probably move as well in there as it can on land. So maybe it does get tired out, and it just, races towards the water and kind of swims around in there as a recovery.
So you bringing that up made me think of an interesting strategy for the Makara. When it does go for that first tail hit, what if it hits it going towards the beach, and then its general assault it uses to push the Wechuge into the water where it can't fight, or at least not fight nearly as well as it could on land, giving the Makara the best advantage it could have in this fight.
Yeah, this one definitely has outcomes that are favorable for both of them. I think that because as soon as it gets that thing in the water, then it's got the advantage. And so I'd say, 10 out of 10 times that the Makara gets the Wechuge in the water, it wins. Because I think it just is too powerful in that arena as well. But
Well, yeah, it's its home turf. And so it fucking just annihilate it.
And the Wechuge has no tech for being in the water.
I'm sure that the projectiles probably help it out quite a bit. But
Not as much. I don't think you'd be able to throw it as hard in the water as it is on land. It'd kind of just be able to float off.
I'm
And
just
it would
saying,
definitely lose force behind it in the water.
I'm just saying, as averse to something that wouldn't have projectiles, it still has a buff. But like I said, 10 out of 10 times that he's in the water, I definitely think Makara is winning. The difficult thing is the Wechuge has a 10 intelligence. So I think that there's enough fights overall where it either realizes what the Makara would be trying to do, or it just doesn't allow itself to be, put in that situation. And on a fight on land, I really think the Ushuge ekes out the win for sure.
Okay. I'm trying to think about this. Now, the Wechuge does have that intelligence, but what my thing is that it's not as fast as the Makara. And the Makara has a lot more power to it. What if the Makara just tail slaps him so hard that he flies into the water? And I think that would be a very logical way just to get the fight over with.
Yeah, I'm just saying I think there's enough times where it either can dodge that slap or it can, keep shooting it at a distance enough times to where it doesn't have enough power to hit it and stuff like that. I don't, you know.
Yeah. The thing is that it's the Makara's mobility is already a 9. And so with how fast that is and how much slower the Wechuge is, I don't know if the Wechuge can really dodge that.
He's only 2 slower though. He's only he's a 7, so it's not like, it's a 9 versus a 5 or something like that. Like this guy's still fast enough to get some good evasive maneuvers in, and I don't know, maybe he uses some of the forest as cover and tries to confuse it.
Another factor we have to take into account is the weight of the Wechuge. With all that dense ice, he's going to be pretty heavy. I could see the Makara hitting him into the water if the Makara hadn't sustained any damage and had its full stamina by the time I reached it, or by the time it reached it. But I think if you factor in the loss of stamina from taking hits from the Wechuge, I don't think it'd have the strength to bat it all the way into the water with that first initial tail hit.
I'm on the same page for sure. Which is why I think that on land, the Wechuge, and I'm not saying it's like an overwhelming one. I definitely think that the Wechuge still has a struggle, but I think overall on land it pulls out more wins. It's whether or not you think that the Makara can get it to the water enough times to be overall champion, I think is what.
Well, my thing is, I think that just once for the Makara to get the Wechuge in, I think it would already be over. Because with how dense that ice sounds, I'm pretty sure fucking Wechuge would just fucking sink to the bottom of the fucking ocean.
Ice floats, my guy.
I'm struggling because I definitely think the Makara would easily win in the water against the Wechuge, but it would have to get it to the water, which gives the Wechuge the advantage right from the start, with the fight, I would say 10 out of 10 times always beginning on land, since there's no reason for the Wechuge to enter the water, which gives it the initial advantage with the fight being on land. If the Wechuge is close to the water, I could definitely see the Makara getting it to the water more often, but I see the Wechuge being a little deeper into the forest more often than not.
Yeah, you got to think about how many animals are, at the beach side versus deep in the forest anyway.
Yeah, and with the ranged attacks coming right off the beginning, I definitely think its damage slows down when they're in close combat, but I definitely think his close combat abilities are high enough to take out the Makara when he's already weakened and they get into a close combat fight.
It's difficult because I can see this in either contender's favor.
As can I, but overall, I think I lean more towards the Wechuge.
I do too.
And who's to say he just gets that, lucky 360 no scope ice spear to the head of the Makara first attack, takes him out instantly.
That's true.
Because you also have to keep in mind he has a 10 intelligence, so he's going to know to go for more vital areas of any kind of animal or beast.
Yeah, I think I'm with you in the sense that the hunter's instinct of the Wechuge probably pulls it ahead here. Its intelligence is just a little too overwhelming for a creature like the Makara to me, I think.
Yeah, its instinct just also tied with its knowledge of hunting because it is based off of it was a human at the time who's going to have knowledge of hunting tapped on with its more animalistic or beast instinct kind of when it turns into the Wechuge. So I definitely think it's going to be the more deadly of the two, which in my opinion I think overall would lead to more Wechuge wins than Makara.
I think so as well. And I think in this instance, if it were the Wendigo in the same position, I think the Wendigo would lose. Since it's the
Oh
Wechuge and
yeah,
since he has the projectiles, I think it's overall just the whole scenario kind of is a little bit more in his favor.
I think a lot of land-based cryptids we've covered up to this point would lose to the Makara, but I think the Wechuge is a good matchup thanks to his projectiles and just the armor he has. Really lent him the advantage in a fight like this.
That's true. That's true. And if you want to hear more about that, wait for the rehash and matchup.
Here's a question to wrap out the fight segment for you guys. Out of 10 fights, how many do you think the Makara could win on land?
4.
2.
4-2. I think I'm in the boat with Roger on this one more often than
You know,
just
I jumped
because
out
of
of the
the
gate with a
armor.
4, but I think I'd probably go with 3. And honestly,
Yeah, I think just on land, the Wechuge is too powerful compared to the Makara. Now, since we're not going to cover it in the. Well, maybe I should just save this for the rehash and mashup, which is what I'm going to do, if I can remember. But I think that wraps it up for this episode. You guys would agree?
yeah, it looks like the Wechuge takes home the champion's belt for this week and joins our Hall of Champions.
And if you like the Makara, don't worry, he's not discounted. He will return soon in the Cryptid versus Cryptid mashup and rehash. And that wraps up the fight, everybody. Let's talk some believability. I believe last week we started with Andrew and then we went to me to start the second one. So let's start off with Roger talking about Wechuge believability.
Don't know if I really believe it too much. With these ones that don't have too many sightings, it's really hard to believe them because it just doesn't add to their countability.
With the Wechuge, I tend to believe more of um, the more Indian or Native American based cryptids, but this one I don't really believe. One, I think it's just way too powerful to be real. And two, the taboos and curses it's based off of, like the camera flash and the hearing the stringed instruments, I think that one is just way too far out there for me to put any kind of credence into it.
As usual, I don't believe in it, but I think that it's kind of like the one of those children's Native American stories, are like the ones that we go over frequently when we bring those up. But it's almost like something that you'd warn someone else about in general. Just almost a life lesson, like, hey, like, you don't want to turn into this thing. Like, dude, you've gotten so greedy, or you've gotten so powerful as a person over others or something like that. Like, hey, maybe like chill out.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. The taboos are just the real big thing that take it away from me. I just pulled it up. Taboos include a person having a photo taken with a flash. If that's true, I mean, the earth would be overrun with Wechuge. Listening to music made with a stretched string or hide. Again, everybody would be a Wechuge. Or eating meat with fly eggs. That is just such a random one, and while you shouldn't do that in general, that's just really dumb of a reason to turn into a Wechuge. So I think it's fair to say none of us believe in the Wechuge. And let's hop over to Makara. Andrew, how about you take it away?
This one, I mean, I don't believe in it either, but if I'd say it even has less of a claim to believability because, like you say, the Native American ones, at least they have, they have some ties. They're a little more in tune with it, but this one seems just to be a mythological thing, almost closer to something you'd find in a religious story or something like that, rather than a cryptid on the ground. And because of the 2013 thing, that boosted it into cryptid territory. Um, a one-off is a lot harder to, with like obviously debunked evidence, is a lot harder to get behind than something that's a more common cryptid like a Bigfoot or something like that, where multiple sightings and a lot of evidence.
Yeah, I don't put much stock into it. When you look up Makara, you see the images of these fantastical, mythological creatures, but then you see a lot of the stone carvings and more popularly the carved stegosaurus looking creature, and it just looks nothing like artist renditions of the cryptid, and I think it's more of just like that myth-based cryptid than it is anything else. And like you said, there's only the one sighting which has been debunked, and so it's definitely more of a creature of story than any kind of realistic tone to it.
Yeah. Um, this one, when it cryptid goes more into mythology, it's really fucking hard to believe them because it makes them these superpowered beings that are in with the gods and help the gods out in some way, and it kind of draws away from the like reality of the cryptid itself.
Very well said. And it can be said that none of us put any stock into the Makara either. And with that out of the way, that wraps up this episode of Cryptid versus Cryptid. For us, it'll be 3 weeks till the next episode, but for you guys, it'll only be 2. Is the Cryptid versus Cryptid mashup and rehash episode 3 our next one?
I believe so. What have we had so far?
Let me pull up the podcast. So far, discounting this episode, we've covered Skinwalker versus the Enfield Horror, which was our last episode. Then we had our SCP episode, our 1,000 download special. Then we covered the Skunk Ape versus the Yeti.
Mm-hmm.
And we also covered one of our most popular and fastest growing episodes, the Jersey Devil versus the Thunderbird.
Which makes it so that the next episode is the rehash and mashup.
Yeah, so look forward to that. We're going to be trying to bring on a new guest, as we try to do with all the Cryptid versus Cryptid mashup and rehashes. If not, there will definitely be a guest of some sort, whether they're new or old.
Is that also the episode where we can finally announce, or is it going to be the one after that?
Let me look. So this episode will be coming out on September the 29th. So we'll go that week with that one. No, I will talk to you guys more about that when this episode's over.
Okay.
But it will not be announced by that episode. So until then, if you enjoyed listening, be sure to share the podcast with your friends, your family, your cohorts, your associates, all of those lovely people, and we'll be seeing you in the next episode. Later.
Peace.